How's it going, boys? Hat-Trick Line back with another video. With the off-season in full swing, there's so much going on in the NHL right now, whether it be signings, trades, buyouts, other big news, and instead of making a video for every little or big thing, I've decided I'm going to compile some of the bigger and smaller stuff into a weekly video series where I pretty much cover everything that happened in the last week in the NHL. Let me know if you guys like this format, if you'd rather see me make videos for the bigger things that happen. I can do that and put it into the weekly one as well. But let me know if you guys like this format and if you want me to continue it through the off season. And with that said, let's get into the biggest trades this week. So the off-season trades kicked off with a rather interesting one when we saw Radko Gudas get sent to the Washington Capitals for Matt Niskanen. And the first thing I thought when I saw this trade was, oh man, Radko Gudas and Tom Wilson are on the same hockey team. This one, it's an okay trade, kind of bottom pairing guys for both these teams. I think Matt Niskanen is the more complete defenseman in this trade, but Gudas definitely brings, that it factor. He is a big boy, and he lays the body, and he gets a lot of trouble. So, just a good swap, I think. No really clear winners until the season plays out, but just a depth trade, I think, for these two teams. So next up, we have a swap between the Blackhawks and the Penguins, and we have Olli Maatta going to Chicago in exchange for Dominik Kahun and a 5th round pick in this year's draft. Now, Olli Maatta, obviously, he's had a lot of injury problems over the last couple years, but I still think that Olli Maatta is a very serviceable top 4 NHL defenseman when he's healthy. He can put up points, he gets some assists, not a whole lot of goals, but I think Olli Maatta is a serviceable player. I think Pittsburgh was really just looking to get rid of his contract, and I think they got a pretty good deal in return. Pittsburgh's always pretty good with getting these younger players that have put in kind of good seasons and turning them into something else. Dominik Kahun is a guy I could see them playing right beside Malkin or Crosby or Kessel or whoever they decide to put him against. But with Chicago this year in a full 82 game season, he put up 37 points, which was pretty good for his rookie campaign as a 23-year-old. And the 5th round pick is back. Okay, so I think this is a fair swap as well. A lot of people saying Chicago got fleeced, but I think Olli Maatta is a serviceable top 4 defenseman when he's healthy. I think this trade is pretty equal for both teams in my opinion. So next up, this one hits close to home. We have Jacob Trouba going to the New York Rangers in exchange for Neil Pionk and a 2019 first round pick. Now, obviously, everyone knows I'm a Jets fan. You can tell by the name, Hat-Trick Line. I am a huge Jets fan. And I really started to become a hockey fan back in that 2011-2012 time. I think the 2012 draft was the first one I ever watched as a hockey fan, and Jacob Trouba was the Jets' first round pick in that year. And I was always big on him. I remember he scored his first goal in the same game as Scheifele against the Edmonton Oilers. I remember it like it was yesterday. Jacob Trouba, I've always had a soft spot for him. He was supposed to be our superstar defenseman, but the contract issues off the ice, I think he gave everything he had for us on the ice, but off the ice is where it mattered the most. And it was always very, antagonizing contract negotiations. 2 straight years now, it had been brutal. And I think the Jets were, it was time to move on from Jacob Trouba. He's 25 years old. He's about to enter his prime, and he's going to get a huge deal. And with the Jets having so many pieces we need to give up, I think it was time to pull the trigger on a Jacob Trouba trade. Now, a lot of people are saying the Jets actually got fleeced in this deal because if you go back to the trade deadline when we traded our first round pick and Brendan Lemieux for Kevin Hayes, now that you look at it, it was pretty much overall, now that we got our first round pick back in this trade, it was pretty much Jacob Trouba and Kevin Hayes and Brendan Lemieux for Neil Pionk and a 5th round pick. But I don't view it like that. You really have to look at it as the Jets were a contending team for the Stanley Cup, and they were going on a possibly long playoff run. It obviously didn't turn out that way. Kevin Hayes was pretty good for us in the playoffs, but I don't think Kevin Hayes was ever going to re-sign with the Jets. I feel like he could go to the market and get big money, where the Jets were just going to offer him probably a smaller deal because we need to save our money for the guys like Line and Connor. So I honestly, in my opinion, I don't hate this trade. Neil Pionk, a lot of people are saying he's a below-average defenseman with some offensive upside. But I don't mind Neil Pionk as maybe a top 6 guy next year, and if he can grow, then a top 4 guy in the future. But if the Jets are able to get Tyler Myers back under contract, then Tyler Myers and Byfuglien are the top 4, and Neil Pionk with the right shot can be our top 6 right shot defenseman. And we got our first round pick back, which a lot of people aren't really looking at the fact about how good the Jets are at drafting. Aside from really Logan Stanley, the Jets have nailed pretty much every one of their first round picks. Trouba in 2012, Scheifele in 2011, Morrissey in 13, Ehlers in 14, Connor and Roslovic in 15, Laine in 16. Vesalainen's real good. He was drafted in 2017, and we got our first round pick back this year. And I think the Jets can do something with it because obviously, like I said, they're very good at drafting. And, you know, Kevin Cheveldayoff has been known to grow talent from beyond the top 5 and even top 10. So I really like this move for the Jets, getting our first round pick back. I really think we can do something with it, and I like Neil Pionk. Jacob Trouba will definitely be missed, one of my more favorite Jets players. I'm glad that this whole situation is over. I wish him all the best in New York. I hope he thrives there. But I can see why people are saying that the Rangers won this trade. At the end of the day, they did get more assets out of the Jets. But as a Jets fan, I do not mind this trade for us. So now we're going to look at some of the extensions and the buyouts that happened over the last week. Carl Hagelin signed a 4-year, $11 million extension with the Capitals, $2.75 million average. I think that's pretty good for Carl Hagelin. He's a speedster. He hasn't really been able to put up a whole lot of points the last couple years, but I think it's a pretty good for an effective NHL player. We had Jordan Eberle signing a 5-year, $27.5 million deal, which was $500,000 less than he was already making before. And after a disappointing year, I'm sure Eberle is happy to stay with the Islanders. They went to the second round, obviously got swept, but I think he's found a pretty good home on Long Island. I like this contract. You know, I think he can still be a 30-goal, 30-assist guy for 60 points, and if he is doing that or anything more, I think this is a good contract. Anthony Duclair re-upped with Ottawa. I think Anthony Duclair is just hoping he can find a stable home. I don't think he cares if it's Ottawa and how good they are or not. I hope Anthony Duclair can really get it going. I like Anthony Duclair as a player. He has tremendous skill, but he just needs to find his game. But hopefully he can stay with a team and find it with Ottawa. And we have the big one, Erik Carlsson, 8 years at $92 million, $11.5 million average. A lot of people thought Erik Carlsson was going to the open market. They thought it was happening as soon as the season was over, but Erik Carlsson re-upped with the Sharks, and this is definitely an interesting one, I think, from San Jose's perspective, because I think I read somewhere that they have $13 million to sign guys like Timo Meier and Nyquist and Thornton and Joe Pavelski and Kevin LeBanc, and not to mention some of their other players. So they're going to have a whole heap of trouble deciding like which guys of those they want to keep. I think if any, they try and get Pavelski and Meier and maybe LeBanc if they can with that $13 million. Lose Jumbo Joe and Nyquist, but that's going to be an interesting rest of the offseason for the Sharks for sure. And we have a couple buyouts as well. Andrew McDonald bought out by Philly, and Dion Phaneuf bought out by LA. Can you imagine if Dion Phaneuf re-signed in Toronto? The headlines would be absolutely insane. I hope we see it. That would be pretty awesome. And last but not least, we have some other news around the NHL. Not too crazy, like nothing too insane going on around other than Anaheim named Dallas Eakins their new coach. This is his second stint, I believe, in the NHL. He was the coach of the Oilers before the McDavid era. Search up some of his interviews he did, really funny. Whether he was winning or losing, he always had a pretty funny, attitude in the interviews. They were always really good. I remember watching the clips of him thinking he was absolutely hilarious, kind of like Paul Maurice is right now. The Florida Panthers are trying to trade James Reimer. I think they're trying to get his contract off the books. I don't think they need the money per se, but they're trying to get him off so that they can fit Bobrovsky into their organization. They're going after Sergei Bobrovsky. I think Florida would be a great fit for Bob. I think Florida should have made the playoffs this year, but I think Florida with Bobrovsky, because he wants to go down south, I think that is a great fit for him. And we have Toronto shopping Garrett Sparks. Sparks had a bit of a rough end of the year, didn't really play too well. And I think Toronto has other options as their backup goaltender to Freddie Anderson. So shopping Sparks makes sense. I'm sure there is a team that could use him as a NHL backup goaltender. I think that's what they're looking for. But if not, I guess it is back to the AHL, which is where Garrett Sparks plays best. And that is the NHL Weekly News wrap-up for June 10th to June 18th. Like I said, if you guys enjoy this format and want to see it continue, then let me know. If you want to see me make videos for the bigger topics, then you can let me know that as well. As always, suggestions down in the comments, and thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out and goodbye.